All right, well, it is 5 o'clock, so we should get started. All right. Welcome everybody to tonight's edition of Connecting with Families. Welcome to everybody here. For those who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Bostic. I'm a member of the board here at the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And we're really excited to talk about preparing for MassHealth renewals. Just a couple of other housekeeping items. As we expected, this is a topic that many people are interested in, and we got lots and lots of questions before we got here this evening, many of which will be answered in the presentation that's going to be given tonight. And as always, any questions that we cannot address tonight, and particularly those that are more specific and individual to perhaps your own family situation, we will find a way to make sure that we can address all of your questions afterwards as well. So please know if we're not able to get to your very specific question, that doesn't mean that we will not actually answer it. We'll do everything we can to make sure that that you get the access to the information that you need, as is always the way at the Federation. Is that if we don't have the answer in the moment, we will find a way to get it to you. So please know that we will do that as we always do. The session is, of course, being recorded, so you'll be able to refer to it as well later on. I have my two fearless colleagues here, Melanie and Pat, who will be monitoring the Q&A in the chat so that if we have the opportunity to answer additional questions after the seminar, they will help us to identify those questions so we can get them out to you. And also, if you are someone who is speaking a different language, you'll see in the chat that there is access to interpretation services through Wordly. So please use that link so that you can access interpretation services. All right, I think that is everything for now. I'd like to introduce our speaker for this evening, Rachael Zukus. Rachael is the Director of Strategy at MassHealth, and she works on a variety of policy and operational initiatives. She is committed to helping MassHealth members get the best coverage they qualify for, and is proud to serve the Commonwealth, the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So thank you, Rachael, so much for joining us this evening and helping us to understand this evolution of MassHealth and the need for renewals, and helping us to understand what we can do to assist that process.
Yeah, well, thank you to the Federation for having me and my colleagues from MassHealth. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. You know, like you said, there's clearly a big interest in this topic, and hopefully what we go through today can kind of make you feel a little less concerned. We can answer some of the most basic questions and respond to some of the concerns that you've raised. Like Beth said, my name is Rachael. I am the Director of Strategy at MassHealth. I grew up in the Boston area, and I also have a 2-year-old who is home and around. So please excuse me if you hear him in the background. But without further ado, let's launch in. So what I'm here to talk about today, as you all know, is the upcoming MassHealth renewals, sometimes called redeterminations. So you'll hear both words. And I think the main thing that is important to take away from today's presentation is that this renewal process is our normal MassHealth process that we go through every year, that many of you have been through before. It's fundamentally not different or not changing. The only change, as we'll discuss, is the difference between how it's been operating the past few years with the COVID public emergency. So today, like I said, we will explain what a MassHealth renewal is. We'll discuss why renewals are especially important this coming year and why you're hearing so much chatter about renewals when you might have not heard that last year or the year before. And so why is 2023 to 2024 an important year for renewals? We'll share what you can do right now to prepare for the renewal. So what you can do in the next few weeks, months, to make sure that you and your family is ready. We will then talk about what you can do to prepare for when you get your renewal forms, and those will come in the mail, and we'll kind of talk through what that looks like and what you can do to complete it successfully. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, I want to talk to you a little bit about what resources are available in your communities to help you with this. And MassHealth is committed to making sure that members get the best coverage that they qualify for. And we have a lot of different resources available in communities throughout the state to help members with their renewals and kind of walk you through the process. So starting with the basics, a MassHealth renewal, as many of you know, is basically a check. So federal law requires MassHealth to check whether members are still eligible. This is called a renewal if you're under 65. So for most of the audience here, but if you are over 65, it's called an annual review. So that language is interchangeable. They need to occur by federal law every year. Members will get their renewal forms in the mail. So it's important to note that they occur at the household level. So if there's a family, the family will be renewed as a household for MassHealth. Something very important to note is that we do a lot at MassHealth to try to automatically renew members. So what that means is we take the information that we have and we check it against federal hub information to see if it's still valid. If we are able to do that, a member will get automatically renewed, which means that we don't need any new information from them. So a large portion of members each year are automatically renewed. These members will get a piece of mail from MassHealth that says, you've been automatically renewed. You don't need to take any further action at this time. If we don't have enough information at the time of the renewal to automatically do it, that's the point that you as a household and a family will get a renewal in the mail. This year, renewal envelopes are going to be blue because we really want to have people keep a lookout for them. And if members do not respond to the renewal, that's the situation where their coverage may end or they're downgraded. So it's very important that if you do get that renewal in the mail, you respond. So why are we talking about renewals this year? If it's an annual process and it's the same every year, why is this year different and why am I hearing so much about it? So at the beginning of the COVID-19 public health emergency, the federal government implemented something called continuous coverage requirements. So what this meant is that MassHealth put protections in place that prevented MassHealth coverage from ending. So these protections have been in place since February 2020. That means that members were not renewed kind of as normal in all situations during this period. The federal government ended these protections they will end on April 1st of this year. And so at this time, MassHealth will return to our standard eligibility review process. What that means is that all MassHealth members will need to renew their health coverage to ensure they still qualify for their current benefit. The renewals will not take place all at once. They will take place over 12 months. So starting in April 2023 and going through April 2024. So what that means is that you and your family could get your renewal notice in the mail at any point between April 2023 and April 2024. So that's could be potentially a long time from now. April 2024 is more than a year away. So in terms of what you can do now, there are things you can do now to prepare for renewals and make sure that you get that blue envelope that's so important. So the first thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is to update your contact information with MassHealth. So this includes your address, your phone number, and your email. And the purpose of this is to make sure that we can get the renewal envelope to the right address and get it to you. The second important thing you can do now is report any household changes to MassHealth so that at the time of the renewal, we have all the information we need. So that would include anything like a new job, a change in your income, your disability status, or pregnancy. And then finally, read all mail from MassHealth. be on the lookout for that blue envelope, but also be on the lookout for other mail from MassHealth that may not arrive in a blue envelope. Like I said, that automatic renewal notice is in a white envelope. You may also get something called a request for information that arrives in a white envelope. It can sometimes be hard to tell what mail is from MassHealth and what mail is junk mail. So I encourage you to open everything that perhaps looks like junk mail and make sure it's not from MassHealth and is an important notice regarding your renewal. So how do you do these things? There are multiple ways that you can update your information or your household changes. The easiest and fastest way, if you are under 65, is to do so online. And you can do this using your Massachusetts login account at www.mahicks.org/individual. If you have a path notice from MassHealth, it will have a link on the back that will take you to your account. If you don't have an account, you can create one by calling the customer service center. So the customer service center is also another route you can go to update your information. The number is there on the slide. And then finally, you can get help updating your information from a certified application counselor in your community. There are CACs, CACs all over the state, and you can find your nearest one at that web address there. Something important to note is that since renewals occur at the household level, only the designated MassHealth head of household can update the information. So after updating your information, the most important thing to do is to look out for all mail that could possibly be from MassHealth. Watch out for that blue envelope. And like I said, there may be some white envelopes that include the automatic renewal notice or requests for further information. So what do you do when you get your renewal forms in the mail? For members under 65 years old, the easiest way to complete your renewal is online. There will be an individualized link in your blue envelope. You can also complete it on paper and mail it back to the address listed there. You can also complete it over the phone by calling the customer service center. And finally, you can schedule an appointment with a MassHealth representative at one of our MassHealth enrollment centers. We highly recommend scheduling an appointment in advance. And so the link there will take you to a scheduling tool where you can set up an appointment. If you're over 65, the process is similar with the one exception of rather than going to mahicks.org, you do e-submission of your application at that address there. When you get your envelope in the mail, you have 45 days to fill it out and send it back to MassHealth. And again, the head of household must complete the renewal. So if the application is challenging, if you have questions on the application, like I said, there are many community-based resources that you can go to for help. I'll briefly recap the three most important ones. So MassHealth enrollment centers, or MECs as we call them, provide members with phone, virtual, or in-person support with their applications, or if you have a question on your specific case, you can also go to a MEC. Like I said, we highly recommend, especially given the volume of renewals that are coming up, you make an appointment online. And appointments can be via phone, in person, or via video. There are 6 MECs across the state. We are opening a 7th very soon. But for now, you can find the nearest MEC at that website there. The second major resource to highlight are the certified assistance counselors or navigators. These are community-based resources who are specially trained to help you apply and renew your health benefits. We at MassHealth, we train them. They're not our staff like the MEC staff, but they are specifically trained by MassHealth. You can get help from them both if you're keeping your MassHealth coverage, or if perhaps you're no longer eligible for MassHealth coverage, they can help you navigate other options. Help from CACs and navigators is free, but similarly may require an appointment. You can go to your nearest organization and find it at that link. And then finally, there is the MassHealth Contact Center, Customer Service Center. You can call the phone number there. Hours are 8 to 5. Assistance is available in English, Spanish, and multiple other languages. So in the case that you no longer qualify for MassHealth coverage, affordable coverage is still available through the Health Connector. This slide just has a little bit of detail about how to access the Health Connector. And it's important to note that losing MassHealth coverage is a qualifying life event, which allows you to enroll in a connector plan at any point. So it does not have to be an open enrollment period. If you lose your MassHealth, you can enroll in a connector plan at that time. So all the information that I am going through today is available on our website. So MassHealth has a website that's specifically devoted to the upcoming renewals, mass.gov/MassHealthRenew. So if you have any questions on the resources, or if you want to find those links that I just shared, you can go to this website. So just a quick recap, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So if you are under, number one, if you're under 65, the fastest and easiest way to renew your coverage is online using your Massachusetts login account at mahicks.org/individual. If you are over 65 or in a nursing facility or HCBS waiver, the fastest way to renew your coverage is through e-submission at the link there. And when I say e-submission, I basically mean you are able to upload a scan of your application, or you can download a fillable form, fill it out, and upload that. The most important thing to remember and take away from this presentation today is to tell MassHealth if you've recently moved, changed jobs, or income, or had a change in your status, and continue to do that for the next year. So like I said, renewals are occurring between April 2023 and April 2024. So if any of those things have occurred in the past 12 months, or are going to occur in the next 12 months, let us know, or have occurred actually since the beginning of the pandemic, let us know. I do just want to caveat, like I said, we have to renew all members this year at MassHealth. So due to this, there may be longer hold times than usual at the customer service center. I know that is frustrating. I hate being on hold, and so acknowledge that that's not perfect, but wanted to just tell you guys that that's the reason why. Coming away from this meeting, you may not get your renewal forms right away. So they might come, like I said, anytime between April 2023 and April 2024. So be on the lookout for that full period of time. And then finally, please do use the resources that we talked about today. MassHealth is here to help and wants to make sure that you keep the best coverage that you and your family qualify for. So that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. That is a lot of information for people to absorb. So I want to make sure people understand we will make sure that these slides and all of the wonderful hyperlinks that are included in them are made available to everybody so that you'll have access to them. I think there are a couple of things that I was struck by as we're coming through this. There are some people who may or may not actually get an envelope because they may be automatically renewed, as has happened in the past for some families. So, but at the same time, the fact that you've not had to be renewed before, you still need to keep an eye out for whether or not you get that blue envelope, and that could happen anytime between April of 2023 and April of 2024. So there's that year-line period where you want to just be making sure you're checking all of your MassHealth correspondence, and in particular looking for that blue envelope, and then possibly any other envelopes that will follow up with it. And also having that link to who in the community can help. There are certified application counselors, and then also those MassHealth enrollment centers, places where people can do this, so you don't have to do this alone if you need assistance that is available to you. And then also the fact that there will be multiple ways that you can fill out that application. You can do it online. There'll be an individual link for you. You can do it in the mail. You can call somebody, and you can even make an appointment to go into MassHealth and have someone assist you with that application process. I'm wondering, as we're thinking about the application process, Rachel, do you know if a person is applying online, will there be any requirement for them to upload any kind of documents while they're doing this application process? And if so, what kinds of things might they need to have on hand?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will do my best to answer, but I also want to check if Heather, are you on the phone?
I'm here, Rachel.
Do you want to take that one or do you want me to take it? You might be better suited.
I can try to take that one.
Okay.
So as they are going through the renewal process and filling in the information, we will be verifying information through the hub. However, if there is discrepant information, then it may result in a request for additional information. So that is something that would be sent in the mail to the applicant to provide to us. So it wouldn't be at the time you're filling out the renewal necessarily, but there would be a request for additional information that is sent.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So at the time that you're actually applying online, there would not be a requirement to put anything else up other than typing in information at that point. And then some potential follow-up might happen in additional correspondence as a result. Sounds good. Thank you for that. There are a number of families who have adopted children through DCF. And of course, MassHealth goes with that child. Do they need to be concerned about this process? Will their child's MassHealth need to be renewed? Is there something else they need to do?
So for individuals who are have a relationship with DCF and are automatically receiving their MassHealth because of that relationship, they will not have to do anything. Those individuals are automatically renewed for all intents and purposes. DCF provides that information to us, and that satisfies the auto renewal requirement. The caveat to that is if they are aging out of that relationship with DCF. So there will be steps that might have to be taken if they are aging out, but as long as they are still working with DCF and DCF is still sending us that information, then there isn't anything they would need to do.
So it sounds like as long as the child is at least lower than 18 years of age, then there's nothing to be concerned about. But if they're aging out and may require MassHealth going forward, then there may be some things a parent needs to do or
Yes.
a caregiver needs to do. Okay, great. And once a person submits their application for renewal, how long will it be before they hear whether or not they've been approved or not?
That will vary. We have up to 45 days to process applications that we receive. However, it does not necessarily take that long. It can be impacted by the volume at that particular time, so it may take a little longer. But typically we're able to turn these around fairly quickly. They get assigned as soon as they come into us to a worker for processing. So I can't give you an exact time frame, but within 45 days.
Is that 45 calendar days or 45 business days?
45 business days.
Okay. So really talking in terms of like possibly 2 months.
I apologize. Nope, calendar days.
Important distinctions because
yes, you're right.
Different
I had to remember our regulation. Sorry about that.
Okay, so 45 calendar days. So about 6 weeks, generally speaking, within 6 weeks, a person will have notification either way. Okay, great. Thank you. How is there any way for a person who has someone who that they care about on MassHealth to go up on MassHealth's website and find out whether or not they're going to need to renew their application? Like, can people know ahead of time? So like, maybe would I be able to go online today to find out that I should be anticipating an envelope Or do you have to wait for that next year or more before you find out?
If you have access to an online account, then you could go into your online account and find out information related to your renewal dates. If you do not have an online account, then there is no way to go online and find out when you are up for renewal. And the online accounts are available for the under 65 population. But just in case it's relevant, we don't have the same access for the over 65 population, those who are on home and community-based services waivers, or those who are in nursing facility care.
If you have a loved one who's in a group home or a residential facility, where does the blue envelope go? Will it go to the group home or will it go to the guardian's home at a different location?
It will go to the mailing address that is in the account. So whatever the applicant has identified as their mailing address is where we will send it.
Okay, which can be different from where they're actually residing.
Correct.
Right? Okay, so that would be a situation where it would be helpful possibly for someone, if they don't have an online account, to get one and then make sure that that information is accurate so they know where that document is going.
Correct.
I'm seeing some questions in the chat, Heather, about, how you can act on a child's behalf or receive information on a child's behalf. Do you want to briefly discuss ARDs and PSIs? I know we just talked about that earlier today, so that might be helpful.
Parents and guardians or relative caregivers have to apply on behalf of the child, which makes them the head of the household. So as the head of household, they are able to act on the child's behalf. If they are no longer a minor or over the age of 18, then we do have what's called the permission to share information, or PSI, and that allows MassHealth to share information with the individual that's been designated. We can only share information unless the PSI calls MassHealth with the member on the phone. So together they call, the member would then give verbal consent that the PSI could act on their behalf. If you have an authorized representative designation, or ARD, that allows you to act on behalf of the member. So you can actually call and make those changes on their behalf.
So what kind of documentation is generally going to be needed for someone if they need to actually, if their application is up for renewal? What kinds of things are likely to be asked of them?
I think income would probably be the number one that you would see to verify income. It may be that certain categorical eligibility circumstances have changed over time, and we're verifying that that is also still accurate. But primarily it's going to be income.
Okay. So, and there was one other question that I saw that was related to that. Oh, so there is the concerns about whether or not, if a person's assets are over $2,000, is there a maximum amount that a person can earn to be on MassHealth? I believe this is for someone whose son is on Medicare, the parents are retired, and MassHealth is their secondary insurance. Is that $2,000 cap still applicable here?
Yes, the $2,000 asset limit does apply to individuals over the age of 65 living in the community, those who are on home and community-based services waivers, and those who are receiving nursing facility care. So that is in effect, and it is $3,000 if they are a couple, just for reference.
Okay, great. How will this information be distributed to people where English is either their second language or their non-English speaking families?
Rachel, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. So the materials that, many of the materials that I shared today are part of a phase 1 toolkit. So there's a toolkit that we've developed at MassHealth that is for members that has much of the information that I shared today. That will be translated into 9 languages and will be available on the website. We also have a partnership with Healthcare for All that includes many community-based outreach efforts. So local radio stations in different languages, different materials in the community in different languages. And then of course our contact center speaks 9 languages, and we'll have an interpreter for any language that a member needs at any time.
And if a person is not able to read, would you recommend they go to to see a CEC or go to an MEC to get assistance? Rachel, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I think I would definitely recommend that. We do, have a disability accommodations at the MassHealth Enrollment Center. And if it's, a matter of being able to visually see, we have our forms are available in large print and Braille, and you can request that. But yes, I think making an appointment and seeing someone for help would be a great option.
Great. And oh my gosh, I just lost that question. Oh, there it is. Once a person receives that blue envelope, how much time do they have to respond? I know there are some deadlines where if you don't respond by a certain time, then your enrollment is cut off. So how much time does a person have to respond?
An individual has 45 days to respond to a renewal. If they receive a request for information after submitting the renewal, they will have 90 days to respond to that.
Okay. All right, which of course, all of that time is before you even get to the determination. So the whole process could actually take several months before you actually know either way, it sounds like.
Yes, but we rarely see that.
Okay. Going back to that $2,000 limit and assets, is that applicable to people over 65 and under 65, or is it just for one group?
It is not applicable to people who are under the age of 65 and subject to modified adjusted gross income methodology, which we don't have to worry about here, but basically rule of thumb, under 65, no assets. If you are receiving home and community-based services waivers, or you are receiving long-term care in a nursing facility, the asset limit does apply. And you could be of any age on the waiver or in a nursing facility.
One person was curious about the size of the blue envelope. Is it a large blue envelope? Is it a small blue envelope? Does it look like the white envelope in size? Like, just so that they know what they're looking out for.
So that is a great question. I don't know if is Elizabeth on the line. Otherwise, I might have to get back to you on that, guys, on that one.
I am here. I unfortunately do not know the size, but we are happy to follow up with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
A great question.
We will get back to that. I'm just looking to see what other questions. So we already talked about if you go up online for your adult child, you can find out generally whether or not you're up for renewal before you get the envelope, it seems, if they have guardianship and they have access to that account. If you have MassHealth coverage through Social Security, which would typically be your 18 and over, do you still have to renew?
Are you talking about individuals who are receiving SSI?
Yes.
Individuals who are receiving SSI are similar to the DCF population. They are referred to us. They automatically receive MassHealth because they are receiving SSI benefits. That information is sent to us by SSA, and it automatically will re-update their information.
Okay. What about people who are on MassHealth and Medicare are enrolled in the CCA1 care? Do they need to renew?
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay. And I'm not familiar with this term, but hopefully you do. What about pickle people? I don't understand.
Pickle people, yes. The pickles have to renew.
And how does one make sure that they're still below the income limit? Do you have any ideas on that one?
That's difficult. You can go online and you can see what our income limits are by coverage type and age, but it's hard to say for an individual because we don't know what coverage type they're going to fall into until we review their eligibility factors. So they could be Care Plus, and which has an income limit of 133% FPL. They could be standard under the age of 18 and go up to 150% of the FPL. You could be pregnant now and be on standard up to 200% of the income. So it really depends. And that's why it's so critical to report these changes in circumstance to us, because it could impact your eligibility and result in a richer benefit.
Okay, great. And a program that's near and dear to my heart, having been a recipient of it, will someone who's on Kaylee Mulligan automatically be renewed, or will there need to be a renewal process for that one?
There is a renewal process for the Kaylee Mulligan children.
Okay. We already answered the question. If you're adopted, oh, here's an interesting one. So if your adopted child turns 22, but has the DDS autism services, will MassHealth be automatic?
If they have been determined eligible for the DDS waiver, that has the MassHealth component. They will have to be renewed, but by virtue of being eligible for the DDS waiver, MassHealth is a component of that.
Okay. Goodness, the one thing about our government systems is there are multiple acronyms and initials that come across. So some of these I'm not familiar with because I don't have anyone at this age yet. If the under 65 DAC is on the intensive supports waiver, what would there be an individual account? I don't understand that question, but I don't know if maybe you guys would.
Disabled adult children or DACs.
Okay. Thank you.
It does depend. So if they are on intensive support, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
If the under 65 DAC is on the intensive supports waiver, would there be an individual account?
If they set one up, all right, the online account, the applicant has to go, the head of household has to go online and establish that account. It is not automatically created.
Okay. Another set of initials I'm not familiar with. Where do we get the PSI?
The permission to share information can be found online, as can the ARD or authorized representative designation. All of our forms can be found online, including our applications.
Okay. So, does the ARD need to be renewed at much like the MassHealth needs to be renewed, or does the ARD just stay in place until somebody just chooses to change it?
It stays in place until the member contacts us and changes that information. PSIs are in effect, or permission to share information is in effect for 12 months. An ARD is in effect until the member tells us otherwise.
Should an individual or family be found ineligible after they've gone through the renewal application process, when will the services be terminated? Will there be an exact, like, will it happen immediately, or will there be a grace period so that they can find alternative coverage? What does that look like?
If they lose eligibility, if they lose MassHealth eligibility, they will have, we give 14 days advance notice. So when it will be 14 days before we close their benefit from the time that the action is processed.
Okay. I'm not sure if we can answer this question or not, but is there an income limit from working part-time? And if so, how much is it?
There is not an income limit for working part-time. There are income limits for coverage for each coverage type. So if you're working and have countable income, meaning it's taxable income and are under the age of 65, then it would need to be below the threshold for that coverage type.
If a 26-year-old person who is on has a permanent disability, will they lose MassHealth if their income goes above their income limit? Their assets remain under $2,000.
Yes, they could.
They could. Okay. Someone was asking what the income limit is to qualify for MassHealth, and that varies with a number of different circumstances, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you review again who needs an individual account and how you establish it, or is it on the website somewhere?
You can find this information on our website. Individuals do not need to have an online account, but we strongly encourage that you establish an online account because it is the fastest way to report changes, to submit your renewal or complete your renewal, and also to access information about your particular account. Those accounts there is instructions on the website on how to set up those accounts. And you can also receive that information by calling MassHealth or with the help of an assister in the community or a certified application counselor.
I know when my son was on MassHealth, it was actually really helpful to have access to that information. Yeah.
It is incredibly helpful.
Yeah. All right. So indulge me for a moment. We're going to go back to the pickle people. What are pickle people?
Pickle people.
Define for us what pickle people are.
These are individuals who have lost their SSI because of an increase in Social Security payment, but meet certain conditions. So they are receiving, their only income is retirement, disability, and survivors benefit. So there's a set of conditions that they have to meet in order to be considered a pickle. But that is it is
I'm
just,
sure there's some
just for
history behind
context.
that term, okay?
It
I'd
is
love
the
to know what
name of
history-
the legislator.
Okay, of course it is.
Who is
I was like, are they in a pickle? Like, what does that
who
mean?
sponsors? Yes, no, we did not just we do not just name people pickles. No, it is the name of the legislative proponent behind this effort, and so we've adopted that name to identify this population. So there are a set of conditions that they have to meet, and we're actually working on some informational materials that identify that at a high level.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for indulging me on that. All right. Is Social Security considered income?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay. And can you explain the FPL percents? Which that could become a very complex conversation, couldn't it?
We could be here for a really long time.
Yeah. So we
so
may need to do that in a different time, or is there a way to do that high level?
I'm going to try to do this really quick.
Okay.
Under
Go
the
for
age of 1, 200%. Ages 1 to 18, 150%. Ages 19 to 20, 150%. Ages 21 and over, 133% FPL.
Wow, that was impressive. And percent of what exactly?
Of the federal poverty level, 100% of the federal poverty level.
Okay. Someone was asking, why do they need to report their ex-husband's income when he doesn't live with them anymore and doesn't give them any money other than child support?
We need that information to compose a household. Our households are built based on tax filing code and tax filing status. And so if there is a parent, we do need to collect the information to determine, even if they're not applying, in order to determine what the child's household is and income.
Thank you. Parent is asking if you could please recap where they can find information if they are automatically renewed. So that would be if they were to set up an account and go online to see what the enrollment dates are for their account, correct?
That information is not going to be on the online account because those individuals go through our other eligibility system, which does not have online access. So they will not be able to find out what their renewal date is or the status through an online account.
Okay. All right. So here's an interesting one. One family member is an SSDI recipient. Another one is an SSI recipient and is a disability eligible over 19. And a third family member is income eligible, age 22. Does everyone apply separately as their own head of household?
Depends on how they file taxes.
Okay. It's never an easy answer, right?
No, we are based on IRS code for household composition. So it depends on, it is the head of household, the spouse, and their tax dependents.
Okay. If a person is automatically renewed, will that individual or their guardian caregiver be notified of that as well, so that they can stop looking for the envelope, I suppose?
Yes, we will send. Yes, we do send notice when they have been auto renewed.
Okay. Does SSDI income count towards the income limits or just earned income?
Earned income is is countable income, so that does count towards the I'm sorry, SSDI. That is non-countable information.
So SSDI does not count towards income limits.
I'm mixing up my terms. Sorry, it's late. I meant unearned income that is counted.
Okay.
It's not earned income. It is unearned income that is counted for the purposes of eligibility.
So in other words, yes, SSDI does count as income towards the income limits.
Yes.
Okay. When we get a moment, someone would like for us to add those poverty percentages that you so flawlessly rattled off to the chat. So we'll work on that. Once an adult child turns 18, is it correct to assume that you will only look at their income as opposed to all that live in the home?
Once they turn 18?
Yes.
18, they're still considered part of the household. They're still a minor. It's when they turn 19.
Okay. So after they completed their 18th year and gone into and are officially 19, then you would only use their income to determine eligibility?
Not necessarily. We redetermine them based on the information that we have in the system. And if they are still part of the tax filing household, then and are in college, then we would use the household income.
Okay.
So it really depends on their unique set of circumstances, which is the case with all of eligibility. We can give, just as a caveat, we can give general rules of thumb, but it is not an across the board guarantee that this is what the experience is going to be. Every eligibility case has a unique set of circumstances, and the outcome of that is going to be based on those particular circumstances. So one case is one case. There's no two cases alike.
Okay. I know that to be true. We'll actually know what these initials mean. Does a disabled adult child, age 35, who does not file taxes, are they considered a household of one?
They would file non-filer. They're in their own household. They live by themselves.
That does not indicate that. But apparently They're wondering if they don't file taxes, would he still be considered a household of one?
They would follow non-filer rules, and there's a different set of rules, but we can still build a household based on non-filers. So it depends on who they're living with.
If an individual is 18 years old and has the condition of autism, but the parent is not his or her legal representative, does he or she fill MassHealth as an individual or file for MassHealth as an individual or as a minor? The individual is 20 years old. No, if the individual is 18 years old and has autism, do they file as a minor or as an adult?
If they are 18, they're a minor. The clinical piece of that does not factor into it.
Okay. What to do if I have not received an application for renewal due to be sent in January? Just keep waiting, I imagine, because the renewal notices haven't gone out yet, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Will I get 2 envelopes if I have 2 children that are on MassHealth standard due to disability and health issues?
We renew at the household level, so provided that they are all in the same household, you would only get 1 renewal.
Okay. Let me check the Q&A over here. A lot of the same types of questions over here. If you have a loved one who's just recently moved into a group home, does this change their renewal process, or is the renewal process the same as what it was before?
It would be the same as it was before.
Okay, I think the vast majority of the questions I'm seeing in Q&A we've covered. We have MassHealth Common. Oh, interesting. We have MassHealth Common Health, and we have not been receiving invoices for our coverage. Can you tell us when these will start to be sent? Will it happen after our renewal? Any ideas on that one?
It will happen after their renewal. If it depends. If they had the, of course. So if they did not lose eligibility or would have been downgraded during the public health emergency period, then the premiums will resume as of 4/1. If they did lose eligibility or would have been downgraded, then we cannot take action on them until they go through full renewal. So their premiums would not start until that renewal was completed.
Is there ever a simple answer at MassHealth?
No.
Will we need to do a renewal if we just got MassHealth for the first time this year?
Then you would be up for renewal next year.
Okay, so whatever is a year from that time that they started. How do you schedule an appointment if you don't know when the blue envelope is coming? You'd probably just have to wait until the envelope came and then schedule an appointment?
That would be my recommendation, yes.
Okay. If MassHealth is a secondary insurance, will we still need to go through the renewal process?
Yes.
Beth, there's a really good question in the chat about people who are homeless and move from shelter to shelter.
Oh.
What would be the recommendation to make sure that they keep current with their renewal process if their address keeps changing?
Yeah, that is a great question and something that we are thinking about a lot back at MassHealth. In fact, we have an entire work group that is dedicated to this population and trying to come up with additional outreach strategies to reach this particular population, because we do understand that it can be very transient and that their addresses change. They do not have stable addresses for us to send stuff to. If if the individual does happen to have an organization or a representative or a friend that is willing to receive mail on their behalf, they can enter that as the mailing address and the information can be sent there. However, if they don't, we do send it to the mailing address that is on file. But as I said, we are actively thinking about enhanced outreach strategies for this population, including things such as having events where we have MassHealth staff on hand to process renewals. So we're thinking, we understand this population and are trying to address those concerns.
There's another question regarding address for families who may be participating in the address confidentiality program through the Attorney General's office, and who may have, escaped domestic violence and so forth, and have their mail routed. Is there any consideration, if there are delays in receiving the information because of that?
That is not a specific scenario that we have thought through. But I can take that back. The concern being if they're using the ACP and they do not pick up their mail at a regular cadence and there are delays in them receiving that, what might be a strategy for them.
And if a person is denied in general, they can still appeal the process, which of course, if you're in this program, you don't want to have to do anyway. You shouldn't have to, but it's not as though you don't have a recourse if that were to happen. Is that correct? Like
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's always the
come on screen. You look like you were chomping at the bit to respond.
I just wanted to just add a little bit to the question. I would just say that while this is like a really big focus for us this year, because it's newer for folks, it hasn't happened since February 2020 in the same way. This is a process we've been doing for like every single year members do get renewed. So we'll certainly take that back and think about individuals who are survivors of domestic violence and make sure we're thinking through that. But hopefully for these individuals or for similar individuals, they've gone through this process before. And I don't think, Heather, we've heard any concerns about delays or timeline. So while we certainly will look into it, we at least have gone through this for a number of years now and haven't identified that as an issue.
Yeah, I think
There's
for the,
also
for the
a question
beginning process of in the beginning, if you're at the beginning of the process, it's less of an issue because you have that 45-day period. But if you're at a place where someone is being denied coverage and they only have 14 days notification, they're getting very little notification if things are being routed. So it's really more of the, yes, we want to correct it at the beginning of the process, and there's a different sense of urgency towards the end, if I'm hearing that properly.
Individuals always have the right to appeal. So there is recourse that is available and they have up to 60 days to request an appeal. We also are implementing a pre-hearing resolution process. So this will be in advance of the hearing if an individual selects it, and an eligibility staff from the MassHealth Enrollment Center will contact the information and try to address the case over the phone, because there are a lot of administrative reasons why an individual will close. They didn't respond or something like that. And if it's something easy that just needs to be completed or satisfied in order for them to maintain eligibility, then we will handle that over the phone and they will not have to go through the hearing.
And what about, there was a question in the chat that I thought was curious. Kaylee Mulligan, is it the same process?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So, wow, it is 5:59. I remember saying to Rachel earlier today, that hour will go by really, really quickly. So thank you, Rachel, Heather, and Elizabeth for answering this wide range of questions and for offering so much wonderful information to help us to navigate this process. We will, of course, make sure that the PowerPoint and the recording are available to not only the participants who are here tonight, but to others via our website. We have, and I also want to remind folks that we have some exciting things coming up in the future. Please know that you can reach out to Mass Family Voices, and our very own Melanie McLaughlin, who leads that program, is available to you if you're having questions, need some additional guidance and support. And also, Visions of Community is coming up, where I call it the annual homecoming for all caregivers of children with disabilities. It's the one place you feel completely at home, understood, appreciated, and loved, all right? So we're doing it virtually again this year on Saturday, March 4th. There will be other things that happen to build up to it as well. But if you haven't registered for that amazing conference, please make sure that you do. And even if you're not able to attend all of it, if you're enrolled, you'll be able to access literally every PowerPoint presentation and afterwards for at least 3 months. So you will have access to all of the fantastic information that's shared. And if for no other reason, because we all know sitting in a room with a group of like people who have life experiences, you don't feel so isolated. It's a wonderful place to reconnect with people and to be educated on so many different things. No matter where you are in your journey with your child or your loved one, it can be at the very beginning or midway. There's always something that you can learn at that conference. So I encourage you to attend. Thank you again for coming and joining us this evening. And please always be reminded that here at the Federation for Children with Special Needs, we are committed to making sure that you have any and all information that you need to help you navigate all the systems and processes that we have here in the state. So if there's anything that we weren't able to cover tonight, or if something new comes up in the near future, please don't forget to give us a call and we'll do everything we can to help. Thanks everybody and have a great evening.